Hey everyone, this video is about a technique that I like to use when I'm wading small streams and rivers, fishing for smallmouth primarily, catch other species like largemouth and sunfish and stuff. Also, anything will hit. But it's called buzzworming, and it's basically all it is. It's very simple. You just fish a worm like a buzzbait. You cast it out. As soon as it hits the water, you start retrieving just fast enough that it gurgles, but slow enough that the fish can chase it down. So and that it stays on the surface. So fast enough that it stays on the surface, but slow enough the fish can catch it. Just like you would a buzzbait. And it stays on the top easier than a buzzbait. And since it's Texas rigged, you can throw it right on the top of big weed patches, hop it across the surface and let it fall a little bit, and then reel it back like a buzzbait. It's very versatile. You can always stop it and jig it at any time. If you see a fish following it, but he was chasing it and not hit, you can let it fall and let him suck it in. Works really well. In this video, I demonstrate how to do it. The point of this video is not to show you that I'm the best fisherman in the world or anything. It's just a technique I'd like to share that I have fun with. I catch a lot of fish and I really enjoy it. And it's something that you might not think about, and it's something so easy to do and convenient that it's just a minor change in your presentation. So if you're fishing a plastic worm, I like to, when I'm smallmouth fishing, I use a medium action spinning rod, a 4000 series reel, and I like the bigger reel because I can get nice long casts. It holds a lot of line. It still balances fairly well. It's a little heavy on the, but that's not a bad setup, right? It's a 6 foot medium action spinning graphite rod. This is the buzzworm. My favorite one is a 4-inch ringworm or ribworm, whatever you want to call it. This one happens to be made by Zoom. It's the Zoom dead ringer. I like to dye the tail chartreuse to give it a little extra attraction that they can see it. And I Texas rig it with a 1/32 ounce bullet sinker and just a size 2 hook. It's a really small hook for plastic worms, but you could go to a bigger hook, and sometimes that works. If they're short strike, and go to a longer hook, or you can even thread more of the worm on the hook, and I talk about that a little in the video. Hopefully this technique works out for you. I've had a lot of fun with it over the years. Real quick, let me just tell you how I came to learn to do this. It wasn't rocket science. I was fishing a creek or a river one day and working a plastic worm, and like I normally do, sometimes I use a little more weight, sometimes less, depends how much wind is out there and how much current and depth I'm dealing with. But in small creeks, usually, you know, you're not going to have real deep pools, and it's real, you know, you can get away with really light weight. And when the fish pick it up, they don't even feel it. They just hang on to it forever. But I was jigging a plastic worm, and I reeled it back to make another cast. And, you know, I was cranking really fast because I really wanted to get another cast over to the sweet spot. You know, this nice looking hole I was fishing, and all of a sudden fish chased it up and nailed it right, you know, with about 3 feet of line out right as I was ready to take it out of the water. Well, you think I would have been smart enough to figure it out then, but it took a couple times. And it happened again, and the next time I think I pulled the lure out a little bit too quick, and it hit. And I was like, huh, what if I wasn't getting many bites just jigging it, and I'm working a plastic worm like I normally did. And, you know, I caught some fish that day, but not, you know, when you're fishing a creek, you want to catch 80 to 100 fish and get some nice ones mixed in, and I was catching a lot less than that. So normally in a situation like that, I would just automatically switch to a buzzbait, and I put a you know, 1/8 ounce buzzbait, the smallest one Strike King makes. And then I put the ringworm on as a trailer to give it a big profile, because I like to catch big fish. You get bigger bait, you get bigger fish. Well, but you have to stop fishing, and if you have a good fish spot and fish are active, and you know, it sometimes pays to just keep fishing and not take the time to change lures. You know, it's a matter of maximizing your fishing time. So I just decided to go ahead and throw it out and fish it like a buzzbait. Normally I would change to a buzzbait, but in this case it was more convenient not to. Another time that it worked out really well was when I was fishing a buzzbait and they were striking short and biting the worms off of the buzzbait. And I switched to the buzzworm and wound up nailing fish all day long. Anyway, so that's how it came to be. So if you ever in a situation where you're reeling up your lure and a fish hits it right at the boat, you know, maybe musky fishing might be different, but bass, when they do it, they're telling you something. They're speaking to you, telling you you need to make a change in your pattern. Speed it up. I don't care if it's a crankbait or a buzzbait or other topwater lures, but in this case, it's versatile because you can cast out and let it sink, like I said earlier, and you can jig it, or you can work it across the top, and you know, you don't have to worry about hanging up on, you know, stuff that's floating or anything like that. You can, since it's Texas rig, it comes back weedless, and there's really good hookup ratio anyway because of the soft plastic. You know, when they're aggressive, they're going to hit it. And anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Try it sometime and have some fun out there. Take care. Okay, I'm fishing a typical mid-Atlantic smallmouth river, and just started less than an hour ago, and I'm wading. There's a lot. The water's really low, and it's a hot summer, and there's a lot of hair algae floating down the river. So I've been working a plastic worm, jigging it. While I'm talking, I'm going to dye the tail. I like to dye the tail chartreuse. I think it gives it a little added appeal, especially for what the technique I'm going to show you. And it's nothing new. I think other people have posted it in the past and on other videos and things. But I call it, when I started doing it, I didn't know anybody else did it. I looked it up online, and sure enough, people do. I call it buzz worming. And I'm just using a little 4-inch plastic worm with a 32nd ounce worm weight and a small number 2 hook. I'm using braided line. Well, it's just super line called Nanofill. So all I do is just throw the worm out and keep it on the surface and reel it and let that curly tail do the action. But basically you just fish this plastic worm like a buzzbait. It's weedless. You can always drop it like that and jig it. I'm using a real light weight, and the river is really low and really clear today. And so the fish can see this. I saw the first bass I caught came from like 20 feet away. I could see it coming. And I'm hoping that you might see that on the video. I don't know. But I'm not really after those little guys. I know I can drop this worm down and jig and catch those all day long. What I'm looking for is a big fish, and they like this. They like to hit on top for some reason. You can jig for them, definitely. You know. The thing about buzzworming is you can always stop and jig it, and I'm using a real light weight too. I mean, a lot of people, you know, you can see how slow this thing falls. Right now the fish are feeding up. I'm not getting much off the bottom, especially with all that green sludge. I think there's more oxygen in the upper layer of the river today. That's certainly when it tumbles over riffles and things like that. We're nowhere near any strong riffles. There was a nice, did you see that? I told you bigger fish do this. Excellent. This is a decent one. He's not huge, but for a river, for Maryland Potomac River, I gave away my fishing spot. That's okay. There's plenty of fish in this river. This is no secret hole. That's a decent fish. This is what I'm after today. And that's buzzworming, folks. I like to use a 4-inch ringworm. Now, he's not that big. He's another 12-inch one. They look so much bigger when you're fighting them. You get them off, but fat, chunky, that's a nice fish. I'll catch them up to 15 inches for sure today. Maybe bigger, maybe up to, they're not Susquehanna size every fish, but they're fun. But I'll take those all day. He was right in these weeds too, just right where I said he'd be. And I know there's bigger ones in here. The difference because of the way I like to jig. Yeah, I see some big shiners and chubs and stuff through here. There's lots of bait in here. There's a bite jigging. But see, they drop it. I mean, I want those, when they see it moving across the top, they smash it. So that's why I'm going to be back to buzzworming. Here we go, watch. Let's see if we can get up. There he was, look at that. Oh, he come off. Dag nabbit. All right, let's rig it back up and try again. He didn't tear my worm off though, but that was a pretty good hit. Probably another same size fish as the last one. Just Texas rig it, very simple. This is no secret. It's just the way it works. It not many people jig or work a plastic worm that way. But on a hot summer day, I just have the feeling I'll throw a buzz bait all day long. I love doing that this time of year. But I just think the fish feed up in the summertime. Sometimes when I sit down and take a rest, there's a bunch of rocks up ahead, and I'll sit down and find a hole around these weeds, and it's getting kind of deep. I'm going to move to the shoreline. I just like to sit and watch all the wildlife, the darters and the fish. It's very fun to just sit and watch the minnows for a little while. Enjoy the experience. It's not always about catching fish for me anyway. Fishing's great, but oh, there, I wasn't even paying attention. That was stupid. Yeah, pulled my pants down. Here, look at that. Pulled my pants down. All right. Yeah, he kind of tore the head off. I'm going to bite the head off. Put that in a little trash can in my vest. Here's another tip. If you're using a little buzzbait for smallmouth in a creek or a river like this, and you use a trailer, I like to use these ringworms as trailers as well to give that big profile. If they're striking short, of course you could put a trailer hook and that might catch some of those fish. But kind of impedes the action of the trailer, in my opinion. But if they're striking short, go to this technique. Then those fish will hit, and it just depends on their mood. Sometimes they just all out crush it. There's a bite. Yeah, I'm not tearing them up, but it's a little guy. That's my 8, 9, 10, 11, 10th smallmouth, I think. And one largemouth so far, and I've only been here in the water an hour and a half. When should I try a buzzworm or a buzzbait? In the summer, fishing for smallmouth. Well, my first answer would be start off with it. I always start off with more aggressive stuff. But let's say you're jigging a worm, or you're jigging a grub or a tube or whatever you're working, a Senko, whatever. And the fish are striking short or dropping it, not hanging on to it. And then you reel it up to make another cast, and the fish slams your bait 10 feet from you. That's when you know you should be using something more aggressive. Ooh, something's chasing bait up there. Wow. I wonder what that was. It chased bait all the way across the river. Well, guess where I'm heading. But you might be wondering, so yeah, when they strike short on you, go to a buzzbait, go to something fast. I don't care what it is. Speed it up. Topwater, can't beat it. If you see a lot of surface activity, that's another good sign. That's an obvious one. Any surface activity, little dimples on the surface, or fish swirling, getting dragonflies, if it's smallmouth or whatever. But if you stop getting bites in the buzzworm, just throw it out and drift it, jig it. So that's what I'm doing now. I haven't had a bite on the buzzworm for a little while. And I don't know if it's because I'm going through a dead area or not, but I just caught a small bass before I turned the video back on. Just jigging the worm. But I'm heading up to where that surface activity was, because that was a big fish. Anything that's going to chase bait halfway across the river like that, that thing, whatever that is, will hit this. I'm going to work this whole thing for that one fish. And I know he'll hit this if he sees it. Chances are. I mean, you can't guarantee anything in fishing, For me, I like doing this technique. It's fun. You can work it as a top water, you know, reel it back in halfway on top, let it jig it a little bit in the middle, let it sink. It's the difference with a buzzbait. You can't do that with a buzzbait. Then bring it back. You catch fish all kind of ways, and you know, I like to find groups of fish and catch a bunch of fish, but when I see something like that, and I don't know if it caught it on the video or not, I don't think so, but my shoulder wasn't pointing in the right direction. But literally, a fish charged. Oh, there's a fish. I don't know if that's not him. That's a little guy. But yeah, buzzworm. It might have been, you know, 50 yards at least that fish chased that bait fish, and the bait fish is jumping out of the water, and you could see the wake from the fish behind it. So, you know, that's a trophy fish there. That's what I want. Those little guys, people catch them all day long. It's fine. I like them. It's fun. You know, they're future 4-pounders. That's what I'll tell people. Yeah, how'd you do? I caught a bunch of future 4-pounders. Well, I'd like to catch that actual 4-pounder, and that's probably what that class of that fish was that did that. What other fish is going to chase bait fish like that across the river? It's not going to be an 8-inch smallmouth. You know? It's going to be a big one. And I'm in his, right now I think I'm in his strike zone. It's in this area somewhere. There's a riffle up ahead. And I'm just kind of fan casting the area where he was working. I don't know where he's hanging out. We'll find out. He crossed from left to right going upstream. So I'm trying to work the whole thing. There's no guarantee I'll hook into it, but that was pretty impressive. Who knows? Yeah, I'm making a lot of casts. You might say, oh, every 10 casts you should change lures. Now I can rack the numbers up this way. I can make a lot of casts and come up with 100 fish in the day. You know, I can catch, if you know, you catch 5 or 6 fish in 10 casts, casting and jigging, but it takes a long time to jig that worm, work it down the river. You know, I'm covering water with this thing. You know, I may be able to jig it up and get some rock bass and some bluegills and smallmouth. Yeah, but that's not what I'm after. I'm after fun too, and that is fun, but it's not, you know, it's also fun to catch big fish. So I think I know where the big fish, he's left. There he is. Oh yeah. I don't know, he's not that big, but he's all right. I saw the wake. He might be as good as that other one. I thought I saw another one following him. All right, there you go. Buzzworm smallmouth. He's not huge, but my gloves are wet, by the way. I always dunk them in every now and then, so when I catch a fish, they helps their slime coat. All right, let's let him go. Praise the mighty ringworm. Most people are embarrassed about ringworm, but I love ringworm. Fishing lures. That might have been the fish chasing. I don't know, he wasn't as big as I thought, but he sure went a long way to come over here. And in this little pocket over here is where I saw it move. I saw, there's another one. There's more than, that's a little guy. Yeah, this is a dink. These little guys are chasing it down and nailing it. Imagine what a big one's going to do. Maybe I should use like an 8-inch ringworm and target only big fish. But I usually do pretty good with this one. I'm working upstream. It's not ideal for doing the buzzworming, but it's working today. It's because I'm heading that direction. I'm trying to cover water ahead of me. But I really like casting across or across and down doing this technique. The current's not so strong today, so it's working going upstream. If the current was stronger, I would be casting across the river like this and do it. All right, I just hooked into one. GoPros. On the buzzworm again. I didn't have my camera on, so hopefully it caught it. But not huge. Sometimes when they hit, they look a lot bigger. There's a little, I'm walking on the edge of a drop off. It gets shallow over there. But sometimes the fish like to herd bait up into these shallows. My first cast when I got over here in this area was a blow up on it and fish missed it. Then I had another one hit that tore the tail off. That's the one downside of doing this, is sometimes when they short strike and hang on, they don't get the hook, they get the plastic. But it doesn't happen that often. I go through a bag of 20 worms in a day. Anyway, you know, it's not a big deal. They're not that expensive. What, $4 a bag, something like that. I'll be under the shady spot under a tree is where the big boy is living today. Oops. Oh, that was a nice one. Look at that. He tore it right off. Oh, I don't know if I still see him or not. No. I'll have to keep my eyes open. The sun's coming out. I might be able to see that fish and get him. Again, if he didn't get hooked, so I shouldn't have set the hook so soon. But usually I don't have to worry about that. All right, time to put a new worm on. For those newbies into fishing and don't know what a Texas rig is, you'll get to see me do that. It's very simple. You tie on a worm weight, bullet weight, a bullet sinker, or whatever you want to call it. I'm using a really lightweight one here. And then you tie on a worm hook. This is just an offset shank worm hook. And I look for the seam in the worm and hook it on the seam. So the worm is straight. I just put the head of the worm on there and then let the hook come out. Get up to the end. When you get to that bend, you just push it forward and it spins over. And then I just bury the hook in the same seam a little further down. Give it a little bend, and then when you straighten it out, it's nice and straight. That's going to buzz straight. Now all I got to do is dye the tail chartreuse, give it a little bit more attraction. Maybe I should dye the tail a little further up so they hit more towards the hook instead of losing my worm like that. I get my worm. I'm using, if you can read that label, good luck. This is garlic dip and glow worm dye. And the sun's out. I'm going to see if I can find that fish. All right, fishing today with my friend Howard. I didn't get too many clips last time of the buzzworm thing. My battery died and I wasn't used to the GoPro. Ran out of memory, so we're fishing a creek. Howard's still up on the bridge. Let's see what happens. First cast, buzzworm. We tried another spot and I got one fish there on the first cast, and we didn't like it. There was a lot of people there, a lot of human activity. Just didn't feel comfortable. Felt like the fishing was off, and maybe that was why. We were going to go to another spot and there were 10 cars parked there. I'm exaggerating, but so we came here to get away from it. Howard ooh, I just had a hit. He took my tail. Daggone it. Yeah. Little guy. All right, well, 2 littles and a medium. Come on, hold still. I will set you free, all of you. Howard's down below at this hole. I'm hitting the top, he's hitting the bottom. I don't know what he's... Oops, there was a bite. Oh, did you see that? This is the way it's been all day. Steal the worm. Howard's throwing a buzz bait through this hole. We moved up another hole. A lot of short strikers in the last hole. Creek's really low. All right. I didn't quite get it over there. There's a little hit. Bluegill, a red breast sunfish. All right. Oh, it's pretty bad when you get old and you have to grunt to bend over. Little red breast. They're pretty fish. Beautiful in an aquarium. He's free to go. Alright, so you catch other species on this rig too. So here's what I did to try to get those short strikers, is I just moved the hook further down the bait. I'll drop the worm and see if he'll come up and get it. That's a better one. He come from pretty far away. I don't know if you saw that on the film or not. Try to keep these gloves wet all day so I can handle these fish and not hurt them too much. Not very big, little in fact, but he hit with a lot of vigor. Maybe that's why some of these fish are getting off. They're just not that big. And I know there's bigger ones in here. Oh, he took my worm. That time I let him have it a little bit and he stole my worm. He took it right off the hook. Ooh, that turned out to be a pretty good fish. A machine gun hit. I'll be damned. All right, this fish is pretty nice. It's not on a buzzworm. I was just threw it over there and started jigging it. Was having all these little fish hit it, and then this guy, I thought it was going to be a bluegill. I set the hook. Pretty good sized bass for a creek. Let's take a look at this guy. Well, I got him on my GoPro. It's a nice healthy smallmouth. Thank you, buddy. 13 inches maybe, I don't know. And my worm is gone. Well, I guess this is a jigging day, not a buzzworm day. Maybe later. Well, there's the first bit of thunder. I think the fun's just about over. Get up and try this little channel in the middle, a couple casts. Well, I still have a little bit of battery left. And we're gonna have to get out. Call it a day. It's all shallow right here. Well, time to head back.